Get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking through.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Renovator. So what does an iron ring and a coaching certificate have in common? I have a clue, and so will you if you hang out and listen to us. I'm going to bring up my guest here shortly, but before I do that, I want to do a selfish plug for my coaching business. So, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or somebody in the world of selling or sales? If you are, great. You can ask a business coach any question you might have around that. Specifically, 4 key areas would be time, team, money, and exit strategy. Exit strategy could be what's next in your business. Do you expand? Do you franchise? Do you whatever you want to do, or you can even actually just exit the business. So if you have a question for a business coach, I'm one of a couple of hundred around the globe, and just hung out with about 150 of us in New Orleans and had a brilliant time. Lots of great information. So if you want to ask a question, shoot an email to phil@coachphil.ca. Happy to answer your question. If I can't answer it, as I said, there is a global community I could reach out to and introduce you to. If you're watching this live, thank you for being here with us today. And if you're watching this on a replay, at some other point, just go #replay and let us know where you're watching us from. I'm excited to have a wonderful lady who I've met through the coaching community, matter of fact, and she's going to answer that question about what does an iron ring and coaching certificate have in common. I'm just going to read something real quick here. Many people think that you're either born smart or not. Those people are wrong. Mental fitness is something anybody can pursue. Mental fitness has a lot to do with our brains, but it also has a lot to do with the way we use it. Mental fitness is the ability to harness your imagination, discipline, or intelligence, creativity, and emotion to help you achieve your potential in life. So Angie Alexander and I are going to have a conversation to kind of about where she came from, how that's impacting her, and how it's impacting the world. She's a wonderful woman. She's an engineer. She's a mother. She's a wife. She's a leadership coach, and many, many other things. And she's done some interesting things, worked in a old boys world, the oil patch, and had huge success there. And she's not an old boy. You can see that because she's on camera. Welcome to the show, Angie.
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's great to see you. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too.
Matter of fact, we met because of something called positive intelligence. It's where we started, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Discovered we're both living in the same city, in fact.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We could actually go and have a coffee in person. That was
in person.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So let's tell the people a little bit about your journey. Like you came from the oil patch into this space. Maybe just tell us a little bit about that so people can understand who you is.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, I'm born and raised here in Calgary, and my father was in oil and gas for me growing up, and I watched him go through all kinds of gyrations and ups and downs because of oil and gas, and I said, I don't want to be part of that. I'm going to go away to university. So I went down east to Montreal, and I went to engineering school there. And then somehow got pulled back home. I think, when you get the opportunity as a student to come back and do a summer job back home, you take the opportunity. So that pulled me back to oil and gas. And then after I graduated, again, was able to land in an oil and gas position. And I mean, I can't really complain. It's been very, very good to me over the 20 some years that I was in oil and gas. very challenging as a female in that world. Very, like you said, not just male dominated, but a little bit of that old boys. Especially 25 years ago when I started, it was pretty much the old boys network. Now I mean, I don't have a lot of really bad stories like some of my colleagues, female colleagues do, but you definitely had to hold your own through all of that. And but I've always enjoyed getting to know people, and looking back over my career in engineering, I really enjoyed the people aspect of it. How do people think? How do they come together to make decisions? All the different roles that we play cross-functionally within an organization in oil and gas. There's so many different people, even within the engineering field, like so many different kinds of engineers within the oil and gas industry. So I always just love to hear what people knew. And I think that was made me a little different, because a lot of times engineers get pretty focused on their own discipline and can fall into the trap of, well, I'm right and you're wrong. Don't really hear anybody else's opinion on things.
Yeah.
And I asked a lot of questions. I partly realize now with my mental fitness training that I had an inner voice that thought that I wasn't smart enough. So I had to ask lots of questions, that I couldn't make the decisions myself. I had to, get everyone else's opinion. So I realize now that's given me the superpower that I have today around asking questions, listening to the answers, connecting lots of dots around all of that. And that I actually am pretty smart. I have an engineering degree, and I have a real capability of tying a lot of ideas together and packaging it up into a way that other people understand. So that brought me more, as I worked through my engineering career, I became more and more involved in positions that allowed me to work with people, collaborate, help teams work together, create processes around conversations. So not so much a process for like an oil and gas type application, but more, how do we have conversations? What's the order in which we need to have a conversation to make a decision, which it really appeals to engineers. They like to see flowcharts and spreadsheets, and I mean, I do too. I love that kind of stuff. But to be able to then present it back to say, here's the flow of the conversation, and let's follow the boxes and arrows, was a pretty fun way to do that. So I'll pause there. Do you have a question?
I have some comments. So the one question is, you have that voice in your head that says you're not good enough. Isn't that interesting? I think a lot of us have that. I know I have it. Before we started the show here, I'm on the same path of, you're just quite a bit ahead of me. And you've got your certification in positive intelligent mental fitness. What I found, though, is in the experience, and I can see where there's some really impactful ways to help people get out of their own way. And before I met and got involved with PQ, positive intelligence, I always had this thought in my head was to stop under living. And I have a number of different things that I do that's assisted me in that way. And I'm always looking for not flowcharts and details and stats. And I don't like that stuff, but that's me, right? I'm glad there's people like you that do, because it's the yin and yang of life. But what I found was, whether I like flowcharts and all of those wonderful things or not, doesn't matter. It's about developing the mental fitness, developing our minds. And the PQ way of doing things has actually assisted me in putting together and writing things where I don't like writing and don't like to type. So that's all negative self-talk I'm just saying right now. But up until now, I didn't. I'm starting to like it more and more. And what I found was, when I had that voice that said, you're not good enough, you should stop doing this, they're not getting this, all those kind of things, I was able to diffuse them and not really act on those things and stop doing what I'm under contract to deliver some content. And it was funny, that was on a Monday about 4 or 5 weeks ago. My self-talk was, my saboteurs were kicking in. And the following Tuesday, again, an unexpected, unsolicited email. What we've only been into this for 5 weeks, and it's having a massive change in this particular individual's life. And yet the session he was in the day before, it was like crickets. Nobody was participating. And it was, are they getting this? I don't think that saboteur voice was taking over.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
whether I help somebody directly as you are currently right now or not, I've already had the benefits myself by changing my stinking thinking into more empowering thinking. And it's really helped a lot.
Yeah.
It's really helped
I
a
love
lot.
that. Yeah. Yeah. The recognition of the voices in a lot of cases, but that master voice of the judge is really impactful. And, I've always thought of myself as pretty positive. I've, looked after other people really well. But the mental fitness work really helped me identify this voice that was really limiting my ability to step into. I think people who watch, and this is actually a big aha I had this week, was that we show up a certain way, and people are always surprised when you share. Like if I share my story about, I have this voice that tells me I'm not smart enough, that I don't belong. And then folks always reflect back, well, like, are you kidding me? Like, you're always up there in front of the group and you're, doing all these things. But what you don't see is what's going on underneath. The anxiety and the negative self-talk that is limiting sometimes your ability to step up and ask questions or really, lean into something. But externally, people don't necessarily see that because it's all going on under the surface. And so that recognition, so that the change that might be from the Angie before mental fitness and the Angie post mental fitness might look a lot the same to people. But for me, it's more what's going on inside my head. And I do think there's a certain kind of radiant energy that changes off of somebody who's a little more, what we say in our sage, right? And a little less hijacked by some of those negative voices.
You remind me of a metaphor that I use and I was introduced to about 20 years ago. And it's like you see a duck or a swan or some fowl on the water, and the water's pristine, and they're on the surface, they're just gliding along, a slight bit of wake. But if you take the camera angle and go below the line, their feet are going like crazy, right? Yeah. We don't see that. Or the iceberg. Like the tip is what people see. They don't see all of the other stuff that's going on in our 100%. Thought processes.
Yeah. I had that up on my wall for years in my office. That be like a duck, calm and collected on the surface, and underneath paddle like hell. So 100%. That's, like show up that way. And I think that's the case for so many people. And sometimes it erupts and we see the negative hijacking that comes from it. But a lot of times we don't, and we don't really see all the anxiety that these voices are creating in people, and what they have to sometimes overcome just to get up and do something, whatever it might be.
And I was introduced to another concept that helps me a lot too when I'm working on myself and working with my clients. And we are all, like, habits are both good and bad. And the bad habits are holding us back from living a healthy life, an abundant life, those kind of things are limiting our potential. And one of my mentors defined us in really simple terms. We have this creative subconscious mind, and its job is to maintain sanity. So if you're an alcoholic and you're really good at it and you're trying to change, it's going to help us stay in our isness. That's the way he described it. Or a woman or a man, matter of fact, in an abusive relationship, we stay there because it's the devil we know versus the one we don't. And it's a comfort zone thing. I'm afraid of what I don't know outside there. And everything in our life that we want is on the other side of that anxiety, that fear. But this creative subconscious job is maintaining our sanity. It's our self-image and how we see ourselves. What I like about look what I just did. And what I like about I like that process too, because I also do improv. It's very powerful and changing. But what I like about that idea is that we are able to no, I lost my train of thought. What I liked about that idea was to be able to identify that there is this isness thing, but there's also the opportunity to grow beyond that. PQ is a very simple way to identify and recognize, and when we're getting in our own way, and then how to get into that place where We recognize it. Doing it hard is not the best way. Matter of fact, it's the worst way because our creative juices get compressed, condensed. They're not very good. We
Yeah.
get, just crazy, right?
We get stuck. Yeah. We kind of get,
Yeah.
Focused, laser focused on certain things, and the blinders come up. We don't see potential and possibility.
Exactly. Do you have a favorite success story without naming who it is that you helped, where it just you're stoked about?
Yeah. I mean, I have some really recent ones. I've just recently started working with a couple of corporate teams, and so very interesting to watch how they're interacting with each other. And a really simple little story about one of the, so it's again an oil and gas organization, 12 people on the team, 11 of them men, 1 woman. And I encourage when we do so part of the mental fitness program is we do pods, right? We meet once a week as a group, and we talk about, set them up for the week of practice, the mental fitness work. And one of the things that I encourage is what I call a PQ timeout. So if we're in a session, if we're talking and one of us feels either our own saboteurs are starting to not just lurk about, but actually start at jumping up and down, or if we feel that there's some saboteur hijacking going on in the room, we can call a PQ timeout. And so I've encouraged that in our pod meetings. And then the team shared with me, early on, it was probably week 3. I was asking how it was going, and they said, well, guess what? We were in a meeting the other day where we were being presented some information that was difficult for us to kind of take in and digest. And one of them called for a PQ timeout as a group that I wasn't part of the conversation at all, but they decided as a team that they would take a moment and do some PQ reps, which are the little mental fitness exercises that we do that take us out of that saboteur hijacking and into our place of sage. And so that was very exciting for me that they were using that in real life. And then that same team, to the yes end game that we just talked about a little bit, alluded to, the week after practicing that in the pod meeting, we just do like a 10-minute play, figure it out. They called me back in for an extra session on the Friday for an hour to do a yes and session with a real live problem that they had. So that's pretty exciting when you start to see it showing up in their actual work life, and hearing the stories. I meet with the manager every week, and him talking about the language starting to show up. It's like it's so exciting to see that, hearing those stories. So that's on a corporate side. I have lots of individual clients as well that I can tell stories about.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, and I can see potential for where this modality could be hugely beneficial for a group of teams, people in a teams. I started my journey last fall in September, and I was dealing with a client of mine. It's a group of 30 sellers, and I was delivering sales training and personal development. And there was the high achievers that took advantage of everything I offered. Like at the end of my email, I always say, hey, remember, if you ever have a question, I'm only ever a email, text, or phone call away. And just a few of them took me up on that, and they got better results. And others were saying, well, when you get on the other side of this and we do a debrief, they said, well, it really wasn't what I thought it was, and it really didn't help me with my selling. And I thought, interesting. So I had a debrief with the team leaders. It was like we weren't in the same room when I talked to them. Like there's this spectrum. What was going through my mind was if we could have introduced, I wasn't ready to introduce this to them yet.
Right.
And I could help people stop settling for their mediocrity, right?
Yeah.
The default. Anyway, that's a
it's interesting.
Yours,
Phil, what you're saying, like that I think once we're exposed to this kind of work, it's like you can't unsee it now, right? So you're in a team, you're with people, and you're delivering the work that you did before, and you start to see where the saboteurs are limiting the ability for that work to stick, right? Because they're just not there's too much of the saboteur influence that's not allowing the the what you're teaching and what you're laying down is not, the foundation isn't there for it to stick to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to unsee it once you know.
They were introduced to things like what we use as a Carnegie triangle. And there's 3 traits: high achievers, and the highest factor is attitude. If you don't have a good attitude, doesn't matter how much knowledge or skill they have, if the attitude sucks, it's going to be not a very good experience for them and the team that they're on. So that's really important. The other thing that we work on the victor victim, which comes out of the Oz principles, and helping them to see, and actually even the leadership team that leads these people and themselves, they can actually check in with themselves. Oh, I'm being a victim today. What can I do to get above the line? So it's not using PQ-ishness, but there's some similarities there. I just think with the PQ side of things, there's a few more tools and ways to help them get above the line, is what we call that. Below the line is a victim, and above the line is a victor, to help them with that. You said something just a few minutes ago I thought was, what did you say? You said, I think I had too much shrimp when I was in New Orleans. My brain's drunk.
The PQ timeout? Was it that when I was talking about that?
Well, I thought that was brilliant. Yeah, I think that was fantastic. You reminded me of something I heard when I was a volunteer for the Max Midget Hockey Tournament. And one of my volunteers was one of the principals for a company called DIRT, DIRRT. Interesting dude. He was an engineer. Probably, well, he's retired from the company. And he was telling me about a story how he managed the president, who always wanted to know what was seeing. He wanted to see what they were doing and to quiet him down. He had a 3D printer and had his team build some stuff and showed it to the president. That shut the president up, took pressure off him. And he came from a point of view is he didn't like to see things in advance, because people would say, so how many of your competitors' product did you look at before you came up with this? And he says, none, because he did things differently, right? So what you reminded me of is this expression. It's the same thing, but just different words. A bell once rung can never be unheard again, right? Same way. But I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to be influenced by outside forces to cause in his creative process. Yeah. That was kind
interesting. I think you don't realize how impressionable your brain is of things that you see, and it makes its way into what you do. Yeah.
Our subconscious mind's working 100% of the time, all of the time, even when we're asleep, and we're not conscious about it. And I forget what the stats are, but it's like 11 million conscious thoughts versus 50 million unconscious thoughts in a short period of time. I can't remember what the stats are, but it's
that makes
huge.
sense. That makes sense.
There's a book I've come across. It's called The Ant and the Elephant. And it's a metaphor, an ant and an elephant, and an owl, the wise old owl. And the elephant is the subconscious mind, and the ant is the conscious mind. And it's an interesting conversation between the two minds, and the owl being the coach. It's really fascinating.
Very interesting.
If we can get in alignment with our elephant, the elephant can take us anywhere we want to go.
Yeah. I like that. I have to think about that. The elephant in the brain. We talked about the elephant in the room, but I like the elephant in my brain idea. Yeah. Well, and then the other thing that you made me think of that I think is, I always kind of call it the secret sauce of the mental fitness, the positive intelligence work, is, we intellectually understand the saboteurs. We intellectually understand our sage, and that's where we want to be. And we were talking offline before we came on stage about books and podcasts and all the lists you read and consume and understand. And I certainly did a lot of that work myself before coming across the mental fitness work. And really where I found what's happened is the rewiring of our neural pathways that happens through the mental fitness work. I think that's really the difference. You can't just sit on the couch and read about running a marathon or watch YouTube videos about it. You have to actually do the work. And the same with this mental fitness work. We can, the numbers we use are, 20% of the change comes from insight and 80% comes from actually doing the work. So having that ability to, switch and rewire the brain so that we're not thinking about going to the sage. we're just more likely to go there because the pathway has been rewired. So the more often we practice, the better that is. I think for me, that's been the big change. I intellectually, the data supported that I was pretty smart. It was just that I couldn't connect what my head knew and what my heart thought, and that it was the neural pathway building that needed to happen. So more than just like the mantras and the stickies on your mirror and all of that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, those are just accessories that help us stay conscious about what we're trying to do, because it has to start with a conscious thought first, right? And then we change the unconsciousness of it. So we, as I mentioned earlier, habits are both good and bad, and if they're holding us and restricting us, then that's not really a good habit most of the time. I mean, if there's a habit is not to jump off of a high building because you die. That's a good habit not to do, right? But if it's to do something that would grow yourself as a person or entrepreneur or athlete, whatever it might be, well, then that habit is limiting us, right?
Yeah.
We could go on about this stuff forever. I want to share with our audience here a little bit about you, a little bit more about you. I'm going to add this to the stream. And this is what you would see if you went to LinkedIn. Let me bring that address up so it's a lot easier to see. And there it is right there. If you are inspired or intrigued or want to ask Angie anything about what we've talked about or anything that's on her LinkedIn site, by all means, you can go there and message her. If you're on LinkedIn, you could do that. And if you're not, why not? Get there. There's a lot of cool people on LinkedIn. Right? And then
that's the best way to get hold of me actually is through my LinkedIn profile. But
cool.
I think you're going to show a landing
I
page
am.
too.
As soon as I get to that button, it says your actual website, right? There we go there. There's 3 truths here. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So mental health. I mean, we know that through the pandemic that there's a lot of chat about mental health. And I mean, I'm not a professional when it comes to mental health, but we know that just like physical health can be improved through focusing on our physical fitness, our mental health is improved through mental fitness. And I think businesses too, we tend to, and this is something that I see in oil and gas a lot, is, we get very focused on the bottom line. We get focused on shareholder value or whatever metric we're looking at, and we forget to support our people in all of this. And that, I mean, I remember early on in my career, it's, there was a lot of back and forth about people, and, on one hand, you'd hear, well, people are our greatest asset, but then it never seemed to actually translate into doing something for people. And when push came to shove, people would get laid off, or you'd get asked to work harder, and it was all about focusing on the bottom line. And then, equipping people is just is really an important part, right? We can starts from the leader all the way down, and supporting mental fitness helps everyone. And I find with the work, especially now recently with a couple of teams that I'm working with, we see it, right? And you don't have to be working on mental fitness because of work. If you're working on mental fitness because of something at home, a relationship at home, or even, I mean, I had one guy who was in this last pod who he wasn't super interested at first. Like he kind of did it because the rest of the team was doing it, even though they were told it was optional, but he kind of felt like, who wants to be the one the one guy who doesn't do it, right? And when we talked about the why, he shared that he plays golf, and I said, I can't guarantee a stroke improvement, but I can tell you that I'm pretty confident that your golf game will improve if you do this program. And because I have a friend who she shared with me, she's like, I can't believe it, but my golf game has improved a whole bunch because of all of this. And so he shared at the end of the session that he had, he had noticed, he's like, I don't know if I can say that I have a stroke improvement in terms of my golf game, but I get way less frustrated with the game than before. Right. So
I totally get that.
And that's going to help him at work. Like, it doesn't have to be, if you help people it's so connected, right? There's no difference between work and home. A happy person at home, or a positive person, or a mentally fit person at home brings that to work, and vice versa. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
one of the nuggets I got, I was just in New Orleans. We had our focal point conference, and I had a client of mine as one of the um, presenters, and we did the whole thing virtually. So he stayed in Edmonton, and we did it virtually. And one of the things that was common that he shared, and I knew he was going to share it because I've been working with him, and it was the training that his team experienced was a sales training program to assist them to come together and have a common culture and a common language and a common sales process, and to be professional sellers and not tellers. And we did that. They were able to achieve that. And what was interesting about this is, and he didn't even know this was going to happen, but some of the feedback from his sellers, the guys and gals on his team, was, yes, it helped us with the sales training. It gave us a process. It gave us a language. It made us more professional. But man, I'm a lot happier at home. My relationships with my kids. Matter of fact, one guy, something they were joking at conferences, maybe a side gig for Phil. He's a matchmaker, because one of the guys said he found a partner in life, and they're getting together and they're getting along. And the training helped do that. So whether it's directly tied to the PQ methodology or some similarities to it, because there's a lot of crossover with things that I know about. If we change what we think about changes. That's essentially what you and I help people do, is to do it in an easy sort of way. Are you familiar with the story about the fly?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, you know how.
Tell the story about the fly, Phil.
I'll tell the short version of the fly. Flies come into our houses, and they sneak in. They're really good at doing that, but they're really stupid too, because you'll see them going up where the light in the window is coming through, and they can see the sky, and they're pounding into the glass, bzzz, boom, bzzz, boom, right? Yeah. And we go away and come back, and we find them dead on the windowsill often, right?
Yeah. Right.
Well, they were trying hard to break through the glass. They're not able to do it. I'm even an engineer, and I know that they're not big enough to break the glass. All they had to do is take a different trajectory, find another opening, and fly out with ease. So doing what we do as coaches, whether it's PQ coaching or other similarities, we help people find an easier route. So they have to bash their head against the side of a window or a wall and get out of their own way and find an easier way to get, as my song says, shit done.
Yeah. I love that. I think there's so many, I've seen that, the dog that's like looking through the fence, right? Trying to get to the bone on the other side. And then you zoom out and there's like an open gate just down to the side. I think it's that sort of thing, that ability to step back and not get so like lazy. Yeah, exactly.
Right? So you just go there. Oh, look, there's an option.
Yeah, exactly.
This is brilliant. We could probably talk about this for quite a bit longer, but out of respect for your time and the venue that we're on, I'm going to say thanks for being here. But before you leave, is there one nugget you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think it's so important in today, we get so caught up in busy, right? I'm trying really hard myself not to use the word busy all the time, because it's like a badge of honor that we wear. And, we talk about the restless saboteur, which some people, like, it ranks high in their assessment, but I think we all have it to a certain extent, that distraction, and that, just give yourself permission to sit and be quiet and breathe is so important, and not feel that you have to be busy all the time. I think that's one thing I'm really focusing on, is really enjoying those moments, that I'm not as busy. And what I find is that I have more capacity I don't feel as stressed and anxious about getting everything done that I have to get done. So that would be my little piece of advice.
And I would say that's brilliant advice, because I've actually experienced it. As we were talking before the show started, that PQ has helped me be in that state of mind more often. So thank you for reminding me to give sanction to that, and for the rest of the world that's watching us now or on a replay. Thanks for being here, Angie.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. Thanks, Phil.
Welcome. See what you can learn when you run into people and put yourself out there. You can learn a lot of things. And there's never enough time in a lifetime to learn everything from ground zero. And why would you want to? The wheel's already been invented. Why try and invent a better wheel? Just use the damn one that's here to your advantage. Anyway, if you know somebody who has a story, a message that you feel would be advantageous for the world to hear, make an introduction. Let's get them on the Business Renovator and share some of their greatness. I want to bring this up to remind everybody that the you in wonderful is deliberate so that you can go out and be your unique self, and you truly are wonderful. So continue acting like it. And that's it for today. We'll see you on the next episode of the Business
I
Renovator.
get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking through.